Toys R Us. If you were a kid in the 90s or 2000s, Toys R Us was paradise. Aisles stacked with Nerf blasters, Hot Wheels tracks, Pokemon cards, and every Lego set you could imagine. It wasn't just a store, it was the Super Bowl of toy shopping. At its peak, Toys R Us had over 1,500 stores worldwide and $11 billion in annual sales. It dominated the toy market like Amazon dominates everything today. So, what happened? It didn't get old, it got outplayed. In 2005, private equity firms bought the company in a leveraged buyout and saddled it with $5 billion in debt. From that moment, every dollar earned had to go toward interest payments, not innovation. Meanwhile, Walmart started undercutting prices. Amazon let parents shop without dragging kids through the checkout tantrum zone. Video games went digital, and kids stopped playing with as many physical toys altogether. Toys R Us couldn't keep up. It filed for bankruptcy in 2017, closed hundreds of stores, and by 2018, it was gone. Blockbuster. Once upon a time, your weekend plans depended on one thing: whether Blockbuster had your movie in stock. Walking those blue-carpeted aisles, picking up empty VHS boxes, praying the copy of Space Jam or Spider-Man was behind it. It wasn't just renting a movie, it was a ritual. At its peak in 2004, Blockbuster had over 9,000 stores, 84,000 employees, and $6 billion in revenue. It was the Netflix before Netflix. So how did the king of video rentals become a punchline? They missed the future. In 2000, Netflix offered to sell itself to Blockbuster for $50 million. Blockbuster laughed. 6 years later, Netflix launched streaming. Blockbuster kept charging late fees. It tried to pivot, launching its own DVD by mail service, then a streaming site. But it was too late. Meanwhile, Redbox killed late fees with $1 rentals. Netflix became a household name, and eventually, streaming replaced shelves altogether. By 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. Stores started vanishing faster than the DVDs they once rented. Today, only one official Blockbuster remains, in Bend, Oregon, operating more as a nostalgic Airbnb and tourist photo op than a functioning business. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed and dropped a like for the algorithm. Sears. Before Amazon, before Walmart, there was Sears. At one point, Sears was the largest retailer in the world, the biggest employer in America, and even had the world's tallest building named after it. They didn't just sell clothes and appliances, they sold houses, literally. Entire homes shipped in kits through their famous Sears catalog. So what happened? Walmart undercut them on price. Target outstyled them. Home Depot beat them in tools. Best Buy out-electronicked them. And Amazon? Well, Amazon did what Amazon always does. Sears didn't adapt. Instead of reinvesting in stores, tech, or customer experience, it merged with Kmart in 2005, another sinking ship. They tried to cut their way to growth by slashing costs, closing stores, and selling off brands like Craftsman. By 2018, Sears filed for bankruptcy. Thousands of stores had shuttered. By the 2020s, it was down to just a handful, more museum pieces than modern retail. Sears wasn't just a store that died, it was a whole era of American retail that faded with it. Radio Shack. There was a time when every mall had a Radio Shack, and every Radio Shack had exactly what you didn't know you needed. Need a weird battery? A soldering iron? A 12-foot audio cable? Boom, Radio Shack had you covered. It was a sanctuary for tinkerers, hobbyists, and future engineers. Before smartphones, it was where you went to build tech, not just buy it. At its peak in the 1990s, Radio Shack had over 7,000 locations worldwide, and yet it collapsed hard. So what happened? Consumer tech evolved, but Radio Shack didn't. When people stopped fixing things and started replacing them, demand for loose resistors and diodes disappeared. The Shack tried pivoting into phones and RC cars, but got crushed by Best Buy and Amazon. Stores became cluttered and confusing, a mix of outdated gadgets and overpriced accessories. And then came the debt. It filed for bankruptcy in 2015, and again in 2017. What's left today is a zombified brand, a few independent stores, a meme-filled Twitter account, and a crypto pivot nobody asked for. Radio Shack didn't just fail to modernize. It clung to a past that the tech world had already outgrown. AOL. In the 90s and early 2000s, AOL was the internet for millions of people. You didn't go online, you went on AOL. They mailed out so many free CDs that at one point, 50% of all CDs produced globally were AOL discs. No joke. By 2001, AOL had 35 million members, a market cap over $200 billion, and enough power to buy Time Warner, in what became the most disastrous merger in corporate history. So what happened? Broadband replaced dial-up. Google and Yahoo took over search and news. Email became free and decentralized. And AOL clung to its paywall like it was still 1997. The AOL homepage, once everyone's digital front door, became irrelevant. They tried pivoting into a media company, acquiring HuffPost, TechCrunch, and Engadget, but the magic was gone. Verizon bought AOL in 2015 for $4.4 billion, then bundled it with Yahoo, then sold both for scraps in 2021. AOL didn't just fade, it fossilized. Blackberry. Want a phone that yanked your attention with every buzz, beep, or clicky keyboard tap? Welcome to the Blackberry era, the phone of business owners, politicians, and anyone serious about replying in under a minute. At its peak around 2011, BlackBerry boasted over 80 million users and was the world's largest smartphone maker. Their devices had a tactile, iconic physical keyboard, military-grade security, and then the iPhone happened. In 2007, Apple introduced a touchscreen phone, sleek, intuitive, and flashy. It didn't need a keyboard. People noticed. BlackBerry responded slowly. They stuck with their keyboard as if it was untouchable. They delayed adopting touchscreen interfaces. Their app world had nothing compared to Apple's App Store. Even when they finally tried to compete with touchscreen models, it was too late. The developer ecosystem was gone. Consumer interest, too. Within 5 years, market share shrank from dominance to near irrelevance. By 2016, BlackBerry exited the handset business entirely and pivoted to enterprise software and security services. BlackBerry doesn't just represent a fallen brand. It symbolizes how fast first-mover advantage vanishes when innovation stops. They built the first global smartphone empire. But once they stopped listening to users, Apple and Android ate their lunch. MySpace. Before TikTok, before Instagram, before even Facebook, there was MySpace. In the mid-2000s, MySpace was the internet's hangout spot. Your profile was your digital identity, with glittery backgrounds, autoplay music, and the dreaded top 8 that decided friendships. It was messy, loud, and deeply personal. And that's what made it magic. At its peak in 2008, MySpace had over 100 million users and was the most visited website in the US. It even briefly surpassed Google in traffic. So what happened? Facebook happened. While MySpace let users customize everything, Facebook went the opposite route. Clean, consistent. MySpace felt like the internet's bedroom wall. Facebook felt like a business card. Meanwhile, MySpace was slow to innovate. The platform became cluttered with ads and spam. User experience declined. It didn't help that News Corp had bought MySpace for $580 million in 2005 and struggled to figure out what to do with it. By 2011, they sold it for just $35 million. Today, MySpace still technically exists, but it's a ghost of itself, home to forgotten music files and digital dust. KB Toys. Long before Amazon Prime and Target toy aisles, the ultimate mall pit stop was KB Toys. Wedged between Spencer's and Foot Locker, KB was where you begged your parents to detour, with its exploding bins of action figures and Beanie Babies. At its peak in the early 2000s, KB Toys had over 1,300 locations, mostly in shopping malls. It specialized in discounted toys, overstock deals, and massive holiday sales that turned Black Friday into a toy-buying battleground. So what happened? Big box retailers like Walmart and Target started selling toys cheaper, with better inventory. Malls began dying, foot traffic dropped, and KB's mall-only footprint became a liability. Then came Amazon. And suddenly, that last-minute mall toy didn't need a checkout line. But the real knockout punch? Private equity. In 2000, KB was acquired by Bain Capital. Like so many retail stories, it got loaded with debt, squeezed for profits, and left with no money to modernize or compete. By 2008, KB Toys filed for bankruptcy. Over 400 stores closed, just in time for the Great Recession. It tried relaunching, twice. Both times flopped. Borders. Remember when going to the bookstore felt like an event? Soft jazz playing, the smell of fresh paper, and a Starbucks in the corner where you'd sip a mocha and pretend to read something intellectual. That was Borders. At its peak in the mid-2000s, Borders had over 1,200 stores across 30 countries. It was the cooler cousin to Barnes & Noble, less academic, more vibe. They sold bestsellers, magazines, CDs and DVDs, and even those giant hardcover coffee table books nobody bought but everyone flipped through. So how did it all fall apart? Borders missed the digital shift. They outsourced their online store to Amazon. They ignored e-readers while Barnes & Noble created the Nook. They doubled down on CDs and DVDs as the world switched to iTunes and Netflix. Meanwhile, they kept expanding, building massive stores, while foot traffic was evaporating. The debt piled up, inventory sat unsold, and by the time they tried to launch their own e-reader, too late, the Kindle had already won. In 2011, Borders filed for bankruptcy. 10,000 employees lost their jobs. All stores closed by the end of that year. The brand never returned. No spin-off, no comeback. Circuit City. Before Amazon, before Apple stores, before Best Buy took over the blue shirt world, there was Circuit City. If you needed a TV, a stereo, a camcorder, or a literal brick-sized cell phone in the 90s, Circuit City was the place. The red sign, the pushy sales guy, the demo wall of 50 TVs all playing the same movie. At its peak in 2000, Circuit City had over 600 locations and $12 billion in revenue. It was an electronics empire. Then, it short-circuited. It bet wrong on format. While Best Buy switched to self-service megastores, Circuit City stuck with commission-based sales and cluttered aisles. It spun off its fast-growing CarMax division, the only thing making real money. It laid off its highest-paid employees in 2007 to cut costs. Translation, they fired their best salespeople. They launched a failed comeback as a furniture appliance hybrid store, because why not? Meanwhile, Amazon was selling the same gear cheaper. Best Buy was scaling smarter. By 2008, the financial crisis hit. Circuit City filed for bankruptcy. By 2009, every store was gone. Vine. Before TikTok ruled the algorithm, before Reels and Shorts, there was Vine. 6 seconds. That was it. You had 6 seconds to be funny, weird, creative. And somehow it worked. In fact, it blew up. Launched in 2013 and acquired by Twitter before it even went public, Vine became the birthplace of looping comedy, DIY edits, internet celebrities. But just 3 years later, it was gone. So what happened? Creators wanted monetization tools. Vine didn't offer any. Instagram introduced 15-second video. YouTube had longer-form content and real ad revenue. And Twitter, which owned Vine, had no clue what to do with it. By late 2016, Twitter pulled the plug. Millions of loops vanished overnight, and an entire generation of content went dark. Vine didn't fail because short-form video was a fad. It failed because it didn't evolve fast enough. Today, it lives on through recycled compilations and nostalgia memes. Discovery Zone. Before trampoline parks, before parents feared germs, there was Discovery Zone. DZ wasn't just a play place. It was a literal jungle of color-coded chaos. Ball pits, rope bridges, slides, tunnels, and the Holy Grail, the giant foam climbing pyramid. It felt like McDonald's play place on steroids. Launched in 1989, Discovery Zone exploded during the 90s. At its peak, it had over 300 locations and was backed by Chuck E. Cheese's parent company. It was a birthday party empire. But here's the twist. It grew too fast. In just a few years, Discovery Zone went from the next big thing to Chapter 11, bankruptcy. How? Overexpansion. They opened too many locations too quickly, without streamlining costs or logistics. Poor management. Franchisees were promised the world, but corporate couldn't deliver. Safety concerns. Ball pits and foam pits. Turns out those are hard to keep clean, and parents started to notice. By 1999, nearly all Discovery Zones had shut down. The few remaining were rebranded or demolished. Discovery Zone wasn't killed by boredom, it was killed by math. Too big, too fast, too messy. Yahoo. Before Google ruled search, before Gmail took over inboxes, before social media was a thing, there was Yahoo. In the early 2000s, Yahoo was the internet. You checked your Yahoo Mail, you browsed Yahoo News, you searched with Yahoo Search, and your homepage? Yep. It was probably set to yahoo.com. At its peak in 2005, Yahoo was worth over $125 billion and was the most visited website in the world. It owned Flickr, Tumblr, and even a stake in Alibaba that was worth more than the rest of Yahoo combined. So how did it all go wrong? In short, everything. They turned down a $44 billion buyout offer from Microsoft in 2008. They cycled through CEOs. They missed out on buying Google for $1 million in 1998. They overpaid for Tumblr, then sold it for pennies. They lost billions trying to build their own streaming service and original content. And worst of all, 2 massive data breaches exposed 3 billion user accounts. By 2017, Verizon bought Yahoo for just under $5 billion, a 95% drop from its peak. Today, Yahoo still technically exists as a faded brand slapped on news articles, fantasy football leagues, and a homepage stuck in 2006. Hit clips. Before iPods, before Spotify, before Bluetooth earbuds, there were hit clips. Launched in 2000 by Tiger Electronics, hit clips let you carry around 1-minute snippets of your favorite songs on tiny cartridges about the size of a postage stamp. You didn't stream music. You didn't download it. You clipped it in. And what did you get? Exactly 60 seconds of a song. Mono audio. No rewinding, no fast forwarding. And somehow, it was still awesome. Because hit clips were pure pop culture. Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, Destiny's Child. At its peak, hit clips sold over 20 million units. For a brief moment, it was the hottest thing in middle school. But technology evolved fast. By 2001, the iPod launched. MP3 players with full-length songs and actual playlists were becoming accessible. By 2003, hit clips tried pivoting with new personal jukebox versions and even a video player. But the novelty had worn off. It was low quality, low storage, and low function, and kids were moving on. By 2005, hit clips disappeared from shelves entirely. Today, it's a collector's item, a plastic memory of a time when owning 1 minute of a song felt futuristic. Ask Jeeves. Once upon a time, you didn't Google something, you asked Jeeves. Launched in 1996, Ask Jeeves was a search engine with a twist. You typed in natural language questions, like, why is the sky blue? And a virtual butler named Jeeves would fetch your answer. It was polite. It was charming. In an era of clunky search engines that demanded keywords, Ask Jeeves was early to the idea that you should talk to the web like a human. At its peak in the early 2000s, it was one of the most visited websites on the planet. Kids used it for homework. Adults used it for curiosity. And everyone recognized the cartoon butler. But then, Google happened. Ask Jeeves's results were slower, less relevant, and cluttered with ads. In 2006, they dropped Jeeves entirely and became just Ask, which somehow made them even less memorable. Ask still technically exists, but it's mostly a glorified news aggregator. The dream of talking to the internet like a proper British gentleman? Gone. MapQuest. Before Google Maps, before GPS was in every car and phone, we had MapQuest, and it felt like magic. You typed in an address, hit print, and boom, a stack of directions ready for your glove compartment. Step-by-step instructions like, turn left at Burger King, and go 1.3 miles, then bear slightly right. MapQuest made road trips possible. It made you the navigator. At its peak in the early 2000s, MapQuest was the most visited mapping site on the internet. It basically invented digital directions. But then, Google Maps happened. Then, turn-by-turn voice navigation happened. While Google added real-time traffic, satellite imagery, and eventually Street View, MapQuest stayed stuck in static directions and clunky interface. They missed navigation as a service, not just a printout. Even after AOL acquired them for nearly $1 billion, innovation stalled. And once Apple and Android put GPS into your pocket, the idea of printing directions felt like using a fax machine. MapQuest still technically exists. It's a functioning website, but it's a shadow of its former self. It didn't crash, it didn't explode, it just got outpaced. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed. Thanks for watching.